Welcome back to the Metabolic Revolution podcast. I'm Dr. Steve Presciutti, and today we're tackling one of the most misunderstood categories in all of modern medicine, autoimmune disease. If you're one of the 50 million Americans who has been diagnosed with Hashimoto's, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, type 1 diabetes, psoriasis, eczema, ankylosing spondylitis, or any of the more than 100 recognized autoimmune conditions, this episode is going to change how you think about your body forever. Because the story you've been told, that your immune system has gone haywire and is now attacking healthy tissue and the only solution is to suppress it for the rest of your life, is fundamentally wrong. And the alternative story you may have heard from the functional medicine world, that you have a leaky gut and your immune system is being confused by molecular mimicry, and you need to eliminate every food group, that one is incomplete too. Both paradigms miss something so foundational that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Quick reminder before we get into this podcast is educational content only, not medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your medications or treatment plan. This is Season 2, Episode 10, and it's the first installment of the three-part series on autoimmunity. Last episode, we covered the gut, endotoxin, and how a leaky gut barrier feeds systemic inflammation. Today, we're applying that foundation to the most misunderstood category in modern medicine, autoimmune disease. By the end of this episode, you're going to understand why autoimmune disease has been doubling every generation, why women get it 4 times more often than men, why the mainstream paradigm of immunosuppression is destined to fail, and what's actually happening at the cellular level when your body produces antibodies against its own tissue. Hint, your immune system is not making a mistake. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, in response to a problem nobody has been looking at. Part 2 of this series, Episode 11, will cover the bioenergetic diet for autoimmunity, and why AIP, carnivore, and keto are slowly destroying you. Part 3 will cover the lost autoimmune cures, Pregnenolone, aspirin, T3, and the bioenergetic toolkit your grandmother's doctor used before biologics existed. Today we lay the foundation. Let's get into it. So here's what you've been told, probably by every doctor you've seen since your diagnosis. Your immune system, the system that's supposed to protect you from foreign invaders like bacteria and viruses, has somehow gotten confused. It can no longer tell the difference between you and not you, between self and non-self. And so, it's launched a friendly fire campaign against your own healthy tissues. Your thyroid in Hashimoto's, your joints in rheumatoid arthritis, your nerves in multiple sclerosis, your pancreas in type 1 diabetes. The treatment, therefore, is logical within that framework. Suppress the immune system. Prednisone, methotrexate, Plaquenil, Humira, Enbrel, Rituxan, lifelong immunosuppression to dampen the response, calm the inflammation, and slow the damage. And the doctors, who I want to be clear are mostly good people doing what they were trained to do, will tell you we don't really know why this happens. It's probably some combination of genetics and a mystery environmental trigger. Take the medication. Get your labs checked every 3 months. Hope for the best. And if you've ever pushed back, if you've ever asked, but why is this happening? You've gotten some version of the same shrug. Bad luck, bad genes, we don't know. Now I want to acknowledge something, because nuance matters here. Immunosuppressive drugs do help some people in the short term. They lower symptoms, they reduce flares, they keep some patients functional. I've seen it. But here's what they do not do. They do not address the reason your immune system started responding in the first place. They mute the smoke alarm while the fire continues to spread underneath. And over years, while the patient feels temporarily better, the underlying tissue deterioration continues quietly, while the drugs themselves induce further metabolic damage, leaving the body vulnerable to infections, cancers, and the dozens of secondary complications you see listed in the side effect column. Now, into this gap stepped functional medicine, and I want to give them credit because their model felt empowering compared to the mainstream's shrug. The functional medicine story goes like this. You have a leaky gut. Tight junctions in your intestinal lining have become permeable. undigested food particles and bacterial fragments are slipping into your bloodstream. Your immune system sees these foreign proteins and mounts a response. But because some of those proteins structurally resemble proteins in your own tissues, your antibodies cross-react. Molecular mimicry. The antibodies meant for gluten now also bind to your thyroid. The antibodies meant for casein now also bind to your joints. So the solution is to seal the gut and eliminate the trigger foods. Autoimmune paleo protocol. Strict elimination diet. Cut out gluten, dairy, eggs, nightshades, legumes, grains, seeds, nuts, alcohol, sugar, and on and on. And again, this approach helps some people in the short term because removing inflammatory inputs really does lower the inflammatory load. But here's the question functional medicine cannot answer, and I want you to sit with this for a moment. If your immune system has truly developed memory cells against your own thyroid through molecular mimicry, removing the dietary trigger should not stop the autoimmune attack. Memory B cells live for decades. They self-perpetuate. The autoantibody production should continue indefinitely once it's been established, regardless of whether you ever eat gluten again. But that's not what we see. We see antibodies drop when the underlying metabolism improves. We see Hashimoto's go into remission. We see lupus quiet down. We see MS lesions stop progressing. Why? If it's truly a memory-based autoimmune attack, why does fixing metabolism fix the antibody titers? Both paradigms miss it. The mainstream cannot tell you why your immune system started attacking. Functional medicine cannot tell you why the attack stops when metabolism improves. Both treat the immune system as the problem. Neither asks the question that changes everything. What if your immune system isn't making a mistake at all? What if it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, in response to a signal nobody is looking at? Let me explain what's actually happening, because once you see this, the entire autoimmunity puzzle reorganizes itself in front of you. The mainstream model is built on an assumption that breaks down the moment you examine it. The assumption is that your immune system operates on a binary code, self versus non-self, and that autoimmune disease is what happens when that discrimination fails. But that model cannot survive contact with the most basic biological realities. Consider pregnancy. A fetus carries 50% foreign DNA from the father, expresses entirely novel tissue antigens, and yet a healthy mother does not reject her own baby. Consider the microbiome. You have trillions of non-self bacteria, fungi, and viruses living symbiotically in your gut, and your immune system does not destroy them. It feeds them. It depends on them. Consider breast milk. An infant's gut absorbs foreign proteins, foreign immune factors, foreign bacteria from colostrum, and rather than launching an immune assault, the baby's body uses those foreign inputs to build its own immune system. The self versus non-self model cannot explain any of this. And here's the proof that should have ended the mainstream story decades ago. When researchers want to provoke an antibody response in a laboratory animal, they cannot just inject a foreign protein. The animal's immune system ignores it. To make antibodies, you must add what's called an adjuvant, an inflammatory irritant that creates tissue damage at the injection site. Without damage, no antibodies. Without inflammation, no immune activation. Foreignness alone is not enough. The trigger is damage. 3 researchers saw through the self versus non-self illusion long before mainstream medicine caught up. William Koch, working in the early 1900s, proposed that the immune system is activated not by foreign antigens, but by failures of cellular energy and the breakdown of tissue structure that follows. Polly Matzinger, a working immunologist, proposed her danger theory, which says immune cells are triggered by chemical alarm signals released from injured tissue, not by the mere presence of something non-self. And Jamie Cunliffe proposed morphostasis theory, which says the true role of the immune system is to maintain proper structure and form of the body by clearing damaged cells before they accumulate. All three converge on the same insight. Your immune system is not a security guard hunting for invaders. It is a cleanup crew responding to debris. Ray Peat, the biochemist who saw through so much of this decades ago, said it cleaner than anyone. Energy and structure are interdependent at every level. When cellular energy production fails, structure breaks down. When structure breaks down, the immune system is recruited to clean up the wreckage. The autoantibodies your doctor is measuring in your blood, the anti-TPO, the anti-thyroglobulin, the rheumatoid factor, the ANA, those antibodies are not maliciously attacking healthy tissue. They are tagging damaged, deteriorating tissue so that phagocytes, your immune cleanup cells, can remove the debris before it accumulates and causes further dysfunction. The antibodies are not the disease. They are evidence that your body is trying to repair itself. Your immune system is not your enemy. It is the smoke alarm. And we have been treating the smoke alarm as if it were the fire. Let me tell you about Maria. She was 42 years old when she came to see me, a high school Spanish teacher, a mother of two, and she had been living with a Hashimoto's diagnosis for 8 years. Her TSH at diagnosis had been 6.8, well outside the lab range, and her anti-TPO antibodies were over 800, which is severely elevated. She'd been put on Synthroid, then later Levoxyl when her endocrinologist switched brands, and her TSH had been pulled into the so-called normal range, sitting around 2.5 for years. Her labs looked great on paper, but Maria was anything but well. When she sat down in my office, she was wearing a sweater and a scarf in July. Her morning body temperature, which I'd asked her to track for 2 weeks before the appointment, was averaging 96.5 degrees. Her resting pulse was 58. Her hair was coming out in clumps in the shower. She was so exhausted by 3 p.m. that she'd lock her classroom door and put her head down on her desk during her free period. She'd gained 28 pounds over those 8 years, despite eating, by her account, almost nothing. And she was angry, justifiably angry, because she had done everything functional medicine had told her to do. For 3 years, she had been on the Autoimmune Paleo Protocol, strict AIP, no gluten, no dairy, no eggs, no nightshades, no legumes, no grains, no nuts, no seeds, no alcohol, no sugar. Her plate was meat, leafy greens, and a little bit of avocado. Her antibodies, which she'd dropped from 800 to about 600 in the first 6 months of AIP, had plateaued at 600 for over 2 years. She was eating maybe 1,400 calories a day. She was a wreck. And her functional medicine practitioner kept telling her she just needed to be more strict, eliminate more foods, try carnivore, do another round of gut testing. Here's what we did instead. We started feeding her. We added orange juice in the morning, raw honey in her coffee, well-cooked white potatoes with butter, ripe fruit between meals, and white rice with her dinners. We kept the protein moderate, around 90 grams a day, and we made sure she was getting roughly 15 grams of gelatin daily through bone broth and collagen powder to balance the inflammatory amino acids in muscle meat. We eliminated the seed oils that were still hiding in the salad dressings she'd been buying, the prepared foods her husband cooked on weekends, and the supplements containing fish oil that her old practitioner had recommended. We added a 1/4 teaspoon of high-quality salt to her morning juice. We had her start the daily raw carrot salad, shredded carrot with a teaspoon of coconut oil and apple cider vinegar, eaten between lunch and dinner, to bind endotoxin and excess estrogen in her gut. By week 2, her morning temperature had climbed from 96.5 to 96.9. By week 4, she was hitting 97.4. By week 6, she texted me at 6 in the morning to tell me she'd woken up at 97.9 and her hands were warm for the first time in years. By week 8, she was sleeping through the night, her hair was coming back, and she'd lost 6 pounds of inflammatory water weight. We rechecked her labs at month 4. Her anti-TPO antibodies had dropped from 600 to 220. By month 6, they were 95. Her Her TSH was 1.4 with no medication adjustment, which told us her thyroid was actually starting to function again. She came in for her 1-year follow-up, walked into the office in a sleeveless dress in October, and told me she felt like she'd gotten her life back. I see this every single week in my practice, not occasionally, every single week. Now let me layer in the deeper mechanisms, because this is where the bioenergetic model goes from interesting theory to clinical inevitability. Stress hormones are the quiet drivers of the entire autoimmune cascade, and once you understand how they work, you understand why women get autoimmune disease at 4 times the rate of men. When the body lacks adequate energy, whether from chronic undereating, fasting, low-carb dieting, overexercise, or psychological stress, it pumps out cortisol and adrenaline to break down muscle, organ, and even thymus tissue for emergency fuel. Chronic cortisol elevation does 2 destructive things at once. It physically suppresses the thymus gland, which is the master regulator of your immune system, particularly your T cells. And at the same time, it promotes the production of autoantibodies by B cells. So you get a system where regulatory T cells are weakened, the brakes are gone, and antibody-producing B cells are accelerated, the gas pedal is jammed down. This is the immunological signature of every autoimmune disease, what immunologists call the Th1 to Th2 shift. This is not alternative theory. This is in the mainstream physiology textbooks. It just doesn't get connected to its actual driver, which is metabolic. Estrogen is the second piece, and this is why women suffer disproportionately. Estrogen is not just a female hormone. It is a stress mediator. It promotes a hypometabolic state, lowers tissue oxygen tension, slows cellular respiration, and directly drives the same Th1 to Th2 shift that cortisol drives. Estrogen enhances antibody-driven immunity while suppressing cellular immunity, which is the exact biochemical fingerprint of autoimmunity. And remember from episode 8, polyunsaturated fats from seed oils and from fish oil amplify this entire stress cascade. PUFAs cause lipid peroxidation, damage mitochondrial membranes, paralyze the thyroid gland's ability to release hormone, and shift the immune system directly toward the Th2 autoimmune profile. They are not anti-inflammatory, they are immunosuppressive, while they slowly destroy your cellular machinery. Endotoxin from your gut, which we covered last episode, damages your mitochondria from the inside, which generates exactly the kind of cellular debris that recruits an immune cleanup response. Mitochondrial dysfunction has been documented in the T cells of autoimmune patients themselves, meaning the immune cells doing the cleanup are themselves energy-starved and dysregulated. Now connect this directly to Hashimoto's, the most common autoimmune disease, the one Maria had. Remember from episode 7, when your liver glycogen is depleted because you're undereating or low-carbing, your body cannot convert T4 into active T3. Cortisol shunts what little T3 you have into reverse T3, an inactive decoy. Your tissues become functionally hypothyroid even when your TSH looks normal. The thyroid gland itself, starved of glucose and overrun with cortisol and estrogen, begins to break down. Damaged thyroid cells release thyroglobulin and thyroid peroxidase into circulation. Your immune system, doing its job, produces antibodies to tag and clear those damaged proteins. Your doctor measures the antibodies and tells you your body is attacking your thyroid. But your body isn't attacking your thyroid. Your thyroid is breaking down, and your immune system is cleaning up. This same mechanism applies to every autoimmune disease. Rheumatoid arthritis, joint tissue degradation under chronic stress and PUFA load. Lupus, systemic connective tissue breakdown driven by estrogen and PUF-induced mitochondrial damage. MS, myelin sheath deterioration from chronic energy failure in glial cells. Type 1 diabetes, pancreatic beta cell death from oxidative stress and viral-induced energy collapse. Even Parkinson's disease, which mainstream medicine is now starting to reclassify as autoimmune, is at root a systemic energy failure with localized neuronal deterioration. The pattern is universal. Energy fails first. Structure deteriorates second. Immunity responds third. The mainstream is looking at step 3 and calling it a primary disease. It is not. It is the smoke from a fire that started 2 steps earlier. So, what do you actually do about this? And I want to be careful here, because the deep specifics of the autoimmune diet protocol are coming in part 2 of this series, and the supplement and hormone toolkit is coming in part 3. Today is foundation. Today is the framework, the mindset, the first moves. The first move is the paradigm shift itself, and I cannot overstate how important this is. You are not at war with your body. Your immune system is not malfunctioning. Stop thinking of your antibodies as enemies. They are your body's repair signal. Once you stop fighting yourself, you can start asking the right question, which is not, how do I suppress this, but what is causing the cellular damage that my immune system is responding to? Now, to be very clear, this does not mean stop your medications. Do not stop your prednisone. Do not stop your Plaquenil. Do not stop your biologics. Do not stop your thyroid medication. Work with a physician who understands metabolic medicine and reduce medications gradually under supervision as the underlying metabolism improves. The reframe is mental and dietary first, pharmacological last. Eat enough food. This single intervention shifts the immune state more than any other lifestyle change. Most women with autoimmune disease are eating between 1,200 and 1,800 calories a day, often unintentionally, often after years on AIP or carnivore or keto. They need 2,300 to 2,800 calories. Most men need 2,800 to 3,500. Underfeeding activates cortisol, which suppresses the thymus and drives the Th2 autoimmune shift. Eating enough is medical. It is not optional. Get your carbohydrates adequate. You need 150 to 300 grams of easily digestible carbohydrates daily from ripe fruits, fresh squeezed orange juice, raw honey, well-cooked root vegetables, white rice, and well-tolerated dairy. Carbohydrates are what feeds T4 to T3 conversion in your liver. Without adequate glucose, you cannot make active thyroid hormone. And without active thyroid hormone, your cells cannot generate the energy required to maintain structure. Eliminate seed oils completely. This is the single biggest needle mover in my practice. Soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, cottonseed oil, grapeseed oil, and yes, fish oil supplements. All of them. They are damaging your mitochondria, paralyzing your thyroid, and shifting your immune system into a permanent autoimmune profile. Replace them with stable saturated fats, coconut oil, butter, ghee, and beef tallow. Track your morning temperature. Before you get out of bed, take your temperature with a basic digital thermometer. If it's below 97.8, your metabolism is slowed and your immune system is in autoimmune territory, regardless of what your antibody numbers say. Track it for 2 weeks alongside your symptoms. Watch what happens as your temperature climbs. Do not do extreme elimination diets long term. Carnivore, strict AIP, keto, long-term fasting. These approaches work for some people for 6 to 12 months because they remove inflammatory inputs, but they backfire over the longer term because they activate the exact cortisol cascade that drives autoimmunity in the first place. Stress reduction is medical, not optional. If you're working 60 hours a week, sleeping 6 hours a night, and pushing through chronic exhaustion, no diet on earth is going to reverse your autoimmune disease. Your nervous system has to feel safe enough to allow your metabolism to climb. If you want the complete framework laid out step by step, our Energy Reset Essentials mini course at biosparkhealth.com/energy-reset gives you everything for $39. It's the foundation we'll be building on in parts 2 and 3. Part 2 will get into the diet specifics for autoimmunity, and Part 3 will get into the supplement and hormone toolkit, including aspirin, pregnenolone, progesterone, vitamin K2, and small-dose T3. Today, get the foundation right. Let me tackle the questions I get most often about autoimmune disease, because if you've made it this far in the episode, you probably have them. Whether autoimmune disease can actually be reversed naturally is the question I get more than any other, and the honest answer is that the term reversed is not quite right, because it implies the original disease was a thing that needed to be undone. What actually happens when you support cellular metabolism, eliminate the dietary drivers of inflammation, and restore thyroid function is that the underlying tissue damage stops, the immune system has nothing left to clean up, and the antibody titers drop because there is no more debris to tag. The disease state resolves, not because we treated the autoimmunity, but because we removed the conditions that created it. So yes, in my practice, I see Hashimoto's antibodies drop from 800 to under 50 routinely. I see rheumatoid factor drop. I see ANA titers fall. But it requires patience and metabolic consistency. Why women get autoimmune disease so much more than men is the second most common question, and it is not a mystery. It is estrogen. Estrogen is a stress hormone that drives the Th2 autoimmune shift. Women are exposed to higher estrogen burdens through their cycles, through hormonal birth control, through pregnancy and postpartum, through xenoestrogens in plastics and personal care products, and through impaired liver detoxification under chronic stress. Add the cortisol load of modern female life, more hours worked, more emotional labor, more chronic stress, and you have the perfect biochemical environment for autoimmunity. The root cause of Hashimoto's specifically, since it's the most common, is chronic energy failure at the level of the thyroid gland itself, driven by undereating, low carbohydrate intake, seed oils, gut endotoxin, and elevated estrogen. The thyroid is one of the most metabolically demanding glands in the body. When the body is under chronic energy stress, the thyroid is one of the first tissues to break down. The antibodies are not the disease. They are the evidence that your thyroid has been deteriorating. How long it takes to see improvement depends on how depleted you are starting out, but most patients see their morning temperature climb within 2 to 4 weeks of eating enough food, getting carbohydrates adequate, and removing seed oils. Antibody titers usually start dropping by month 3 or 4. Full clinical remission, where all the symptoms have resolved and the labs are normalized, typically happens between 6 months and 2 years. And finally, whether you should be on immunosuppressants if you're starting this approach is a question only your physician can answer with you. Do not stop them on your own, but work with someone who understands that the goal is to reduce the medication load over time as the underlying metabolism heals, not to keep you on suppression for life. Here's what I want you to walk away from this episode understanding. You are not broken. Your body is not defective. Your immune system is not malfunctioning. Your body is screaming for energy and being misdiagnosed as if it were attacking itself. 50 million Americans have been told their bodies are their enemies, and they have been handed lifelong immunosuppression as the only path forward, while the underlying cellular energy failure that started the entire process has gone unexamined and untreated. The mainstream got it wrong because they were looking at step 3 of a 3-step cascade. Functional medicine got partway there by recognizing the gut piece, but missed the deeper metabolic context. The truth, as Ray Peat understood, and as William Koch, Polly Matzinger, and Jamie Cunliffe each described in their own way, is that your immune system is responding to damaged tissue exactly as it should. It is not an attack. It is a cleanup. And cleanup will continue as long as there is debris to clean. Stop the energy failure, stop the structural damage, and the immune response quiets on its own. No immunosuppression required. Here is your specific challenge for tomorrow. Take your morning temperature before you get out of bed. Track it for 1 week alongside your symptoms. If it's below 97.8 degrees, you have direct evidence that your metabolism is contributing to your autoimmune state, regardless of what any other lab has told you. That single piece of data is more valuable than any antibody titer your endocrinologist will run. Next episode, number 11, is Heal Your Gut, Reverse Autoimmunity. We're going deep into the diet that actually works for autoimmune disease, and we're going to expose why AIP, carnivore, and keto are slowly destroying you, why fish oil is the single worst thing an autoimmune patient can take, and what the bioenergetic plate actually looks like meal by meal. After that, episode 12 will cover the lost autoimmune cures, the supplement and hormone toolkit that physicians used successfully for decades before biologics, including aspirin, Pregnenolone, Progesterone, vitamin K2, and small-dose T3. If you want the complete foundational framework now, our Energy Reset Essentials mini course at biosparkhealth.com/reset gives you everything you need for $39. It's the on-ramp to everything we're covering in this series. Everything discussed today is educational information only. Work with a healthcare provider who understands metabolic health before making any changes to your treatment plan, especially if you are currently on immunosuppressive medications. Your body is not your enemy. Your immune system is not malfunctioning. You are not broken. You are responding intelligently to an environment that has been failing your cells, and the path forward is to fix the environment, not to wage war against the response. The revolution continues. You came to the right place. Let's talk.